We sometimes confuse Russia with the Soviet Union. Russia is not the Soviet Union, it's much less than that. And even in Ukraine, as you see, after 3 years, they have gained only 18% of the territory. It's not much for a superpower as they claim to be.
Let's speak now to Ambassador Allessandro Minuto-Rizzo, the former Secretary General of NATO from 2003 to 2004 and Deputy General Secretary of NATO from 2001 to 2007. Hello to you.
Good morning, sir.
How do you view the state of health of the Western Alliance today?
Well, there is a lot of confusion. Everybody is speaking, politicians, military, journalists. We have to look, I think, a little bit to the facts. The Atlantic Alliance is 76 years old, and it has passed through many crises and always survived because of good reasons, because it is the only shield we have, in the West, any or an aggression, and it has two added values which are very difficult to match. The first one is this is an alliance of democracies. The best democracies in the world are there. The second one is that there is a habit of interoperability, and there is a very good capacity to mount operations and to have a very good defense among 32 countries at the moment. So, when we speak about, or we think about the Americans leaving NATO, I don't know, why should they do that, It is a very good help to them. We should never forget the point in our favor, if I may express myself in this way. In the sense that, for instance, if we think about Afghanistan, and NATO has been in Afghanistan for many years, and they've been the ones who started the operation, by the way. In Afghanistan, about 40% of the troops there were Europeans, and casualties were about 35 to 40%. So this is a substantial help, very substantial help. So, we are concentrated, we are focused, I understand the reasons, on defense spending, which of course is a good subject. I'm not denying that. But what I would like to say is this is not the only point, The other point is that the Europeans, and of course I include UK into that, the Europeans are the best allies of the United States in history. Remember that Obama, when he became a president, he started his presidency, his term, saying pivot to Asia. Then he changed his mind, in 8 years. In the end, his last trip was to Berlin, to meet Angela Merkel. So we see, I think that perhaps we should be also a little bit patient. And besides this outburst from the American side, what we see in Washington, which is very surprising to all of us, I think, there is no doubt about that. Perhaps, with some calm, with some patience, discussing with the people there. Because, there is another point to take into consideration. The people in power in Washington today, they're very new people. The deputy, the vice president, he has been a senator for 1 year. So, these people, they don't know much about the world, and they don't know each other, I think, well. So perhaps if we are a little bit patient, with dignity, of course, but a little bit patient, and we speak to them and we convince them that it is also in their best interest to remain in NATO, maybe things will change. Because you remember, during the first term...
Yeah, but you see, the problem is, you talk about the history and the troubles in NATO before, and obviously you're correct, but we haven't had a new administration expressing doubts about its contribution to NATO, and even close advisors to the president like Elon Musk talking about leaving NATO. This is an existential issue that the organization itself has never faced before, isn't it?
Well, let's put it in a different way. I think in Europe, and I speak in Euro, not European Union, I speak in Europe at large, our societies have been growing after two very bloody world wars. And in the end, do you remember the Berlin Wall fell in 1989? And we produced well-being for our people, welfare. These things are not bad things, they are good things. And also, why did we do that in all our countries, more or less? Because we thought that there was a dividend of peace in a way or in another.
But
There was,
that's not how President Trump or Vance see it today, unfortunately.
of course, well, you're right. Yeah, sure. Now things have changed. I'm not sure that European public opinion really shares this threat perceptions everywhere. In which way do I try to explain myself? Russia has aggressed Ukraine. There is no point in that, and we don't need to discuss that too long because we know the fact very well. But at the same time, when the war is finished, is Russia powerful enough to be, a real threat to Western Europe? I don't know. This is not a good reason not to rearm ourselves. But, we sometimes confuse Russia with the Soviet Union. Russia is not the Soviet Union, it's much less than that. And even in Ukraine, as you see, after 3 years, they have gained only 18% of the territory. It's not much for a superpower as they claim it to be. So, of course, we have to spend more in defense, I agree, but we have to do it in a rational way, gradually, because we cannot cut, whatever we have in our country only to have more weapons. But certainly, it's a good point. I'm not denying that. The only point that I'm putting on the table is that we should enlarge a little bit this discussion and to think also the positive point that the Europeans, stupid or weak as they are, anyway gave to this what we used to call Euro-Atlantic community. This is my point.
Allessandro Minuto-Rizzo, thank you very much indeed for joining us. A few of your comments coming in on this. Congress under President Biden has made it very difficult for the US to leave NATO. If good sense prevails, Trump is unlikely to get the necessary votes. That's Amanda's comment. Peter says, perhaps you could ask some of the experts and politicians why they think Russia is not taking advantage militarily of the current disarray. Got to be honest, if I was Putin, I would think that this would be an opportunity for a massive invasion with the Ukrainian morale low. I wonder whether the answer is that Russia simply doesn't have the money and resources. I think that using Russian assets to fund the war is good, as long as that money isn't spent with the US. That's Peter. And too many contributors aren't facing reality, Collins says. Russia will not tolerate any foreign troops on Ukraine, and US won't push them on that. So that is the situation as it stands now. In a moment, we're going to break away from international politics and talk about the assisted dying bill, which appears to be in peril in the House of Commons after the committee looking into amendments rejected promised safeguards. We'll hear from Danny Kruger, who is a key member of the committee.